The hotel owners of Silver Ridge thought Daniel Harper was using inferior materials when guests complained their mattresses felt lumpy and uncomfortable. What they didn't realize was that those lumps weren't cheap stuffing. They were secret documents, contraband weapons, and stolen gold that Daniel was smuggling through his mattress delivery network, making every bed in town a potential hiding place for treasures that could start wars between competing railroad companies. But to understand how a mattress stuffer became the most successful smuggler in the American West, we need to go back to where it all started. Back to a summer morning in 1867, when young Daniel first learned that some cargo is too valuable to trust to conventional transportation, and some secrets are safer when people sleep on them every night. Daniel Harper had arrived in Silver Ridge, Colorado Territory, in the summer of 1867 as a 26-year-old former Union Army quartermaster, carrying with him specialized knowledge of logistics and supply chain management that would prove invaluable during the great railroad expansion wars of the post-Civil War era. He was unassuming in appearance, average height with brown hair and the kind of forgettable face that made him invisible in crowds. But his military background had taught him that the most successful operations were often conducted by people who attracted no attention whatsoever. Silver Ridge in 1867 was at the epicenter of the most intense corporate warfare in American history, as competing railroad companies fought for control of the routes that would determine the economic future of the continent. The town's strategic location at the junction of three mountain passes made it a crucial waypoint for any railroad seeking to connect the East Coast with the Pacific, creating a situation where billions of dollars in potential profits depended on which company could secure the rights to build through Silver Ridge first. The railroad wars that dominated the period from 1865 to 1875 were unlike any business competition the world had ever seen. Companies employed armies of surveyors, engineers, construction crews, and security forces that operated more like military units than civilian contractors. They engaged in industrial espionage, sabotage, bribery, and occasionally outright violence to gain advantages over their competitors. Most importantly for Daniel's future career, they were willing to pay enormous sums for secure transportation of sensitive materials that could not be trusted to conventional shipping methods. Daniel's official business as a mattress stuffer served multiple strategic purposes that made it perfect cover for smuggling operations. Mattresses were bulky items that required regular delivery to hotels, boarding houses, and private residences throughout the territory, giving him legitimate reasons to travel constantly and visit locations where railroad executives, government officials, and other important figures conducted their business. The interior of mattresses provided ideal concealment for documents, small valuable items, and even weapons that needed to be transported without detection. Most importantly, mattresses were intimate personal items that people rarely examined closely and never shared with strangers. Once Daniel delivered a mattress to a customer, he could be confident that its contents would remain undisturbed until he returned to retrieve them or until the intended recipient extracted whatever had been hidden inside. This created a network of secure dead drops throughout Silver Ridge and surrounding communities that operated with minimal risk of discovery. Daniel's first major smuggling contract came from the Continental Western Railroad, whose executives needed to transport stolen construction plans and survey maps that they had obtained through industrial espionage against their primary competitor, the Mountain Pacific Railroad Company. The documents were too sensitive to send through the mail or carry openly, but they contained information about planned routes, construction techniques, and financial arrangements that could give Continental Western a decisive advantage in the competition for government contracts. The operation that Daniel designed for transporting the stolen railroad documents demonstrated the sophistication of his smuggling methods. Rather than simply hiding the papers inside mattress stuffing, he created a complex system of weighted compartments and false bottoms that would make the contraband virtually undetectable even during thorough inspections. The documents were sealed in waterproof containers, surrounded by materials that would disguise their weight and shape, and positioned in locations within the mattresses where they would not create obvious lumps or unusual firmness. The delivery system that Daniel established was equally sophisticated. Each mattress was delivered to a specific hotel room or private residence, where it would remain for a predetermined period, allowing the intended recipient time to extract the hidden materials at their convenience. The mattresses were then collected and returned to Daniel's workshop for refurbishment, a process that allowed him to insert new contraband while removing evidence of previous operations. The success of the Continental Western operation led to additional contract from other railroad companies, territorial officials, mining operations, and various criminal organizations that needed secure transportation for sensitive materials. Daniel found himself managing a complex network of smuggling operations that involved dozens of different clients and hundreds of individual transactions, all conducted through the seemingly innocent business of delivering comfortable mattresses to customers throughout the territory. But Daniel's most challenging and profitable operations involved the smuggling of physical contraband rather than documents. The railroad wars had created a massive black market for weapons, explosives, precious metals, and various other materials that could be used to sabotage competitors or protect company assets from attack. These items were much more difficult to conceal than documents, but they also commanded premium prices that made the risks worthwhile. The weapons smuggling operations that Daniel conducted for various railroad companies required him to develop entirely new concealment techniques. Disassembled rifles could be hidden within the wooden frames of mattresses, while ammunition and explosives were concealed in specially designed compartments that were lined with materials to prevent accidental detonation. The most challenging items to transport were complete firearms and large quantities of ammunition that were too bulky to hide within normal mattress construction. Daniel's solution was to create custom mattresses that were significantly thicker and heavier than normal, using the extra space to accommodate larger contraband items while maintaining the appearance of conventional bedding. These special mattresses were more expensive to produce and deliver, but they allowed him to transport complete weapon systems, including rifles, pistols, ammunition, and even small cannons that could be used for railroad construction or defense. The gold smuggling operation that would ultimately make Daniel wealthy beyond his wildest dreams began in the spring of 1871 when the Mountain Pacific Railroad discovered a rich vein of gold or in territory that was officially controlled by their competitor, Continental Western Railroad. Rather than report the discovery through legal channels that would result in a lengthy dispute over mining rights, Mountain Pacific executives decided to extract the gold secretly and transport it to banks in Denver, where it could be converted to cash without revealing its source. The challenge of smuggling large quantities of gold required Daniel to push his concealment techniques to their absolute limits. Gold was extremely heavy and dense, making it impossible to hide significant amounts within conventional mattress construction without creating obvious weight and firmness problems. Daniel's solution was to develop a new type of mattress that used lead shot as stuffing material, creating beds that were naturally heavy and firm while providing perfect camouflage for gold bars and coins. The lead shot mattresses were marketed to customers as premium bedding that provided superior support and durability compared to conventional cotton or wool stuffing. The unusual weight and firmness were presented as desirable features that would help customers sleep better and wake up more refreshed. In reality, the lead shots served as both stuffing material and camouflage for gold bars that were distributed throughout each mattress in quantities that made detection virtually impossible. The gold smuggling operation continued for over 2 years, during which Daniel transported an estimated $500,000 in stolen gold bars and coins through his mattress delivery network. The operation was so successful that Mountain Pacific executives began to consider Daniel an essential partner in their business activities, providing him with inside information about planned operations and consulting with him on security matters that extended far beyond transportation logistics. But the success of Daniel's smuggling operations also attracted unwanted attention from law enforcement agencies and competing criminal organizations that wanted either to shut down his activities or take control of his network for their own purposes. The Pinkerton Detective Agency, which had been hired by several railroad companies to investigate industrial espionage and sabotage, began to notice patterns in Daniel's business activities that suggested he might be involved in illegal transportation operations. The investigation that followed was conducted by Detective William Morrison, a former military intelligence officer who specialized in uncovering complex criminal conspiracies. Morrison's approach was methodical and thorough, involving detailed surveillance of Daniel's activities, analysis of his business records, and interviews with customers who had received his mattresses over the previous several years. What Morrison discovered was evidence of the most sophisticated smuggling operation in American frontier history. Daniel's mattress delivery network had been used to transport not only documents and weapons, but also gold, silver, precious stones, and various other contraband materials worth millions of dollars. The scale of the operation was so large that it had influenced the outcome of several major business competitions and territorial political disputes. Most troubling from a law enforcement perspective was the evidence that Daniel's network had been used to transport materials that posed serious threats to public safety. Explosives that had been smuggled through mattress deliveries had been used in mining accidents and industrial sabotage operations that had resulted in numerous deaths. Weapons transported through Daniel's system had been used in violent confrontations between competing railroad companies and in attacks on government officials who had opposed specific business interests. The decision to arrest Daniel required careful coordination between federal marshals, territorial law enforcement, and private security forces working for various railroad companies. The challenge was that Daniel's smuggling network was so extensive and well-established that shutting it down suddenly could disrupt legitimate business activities throughout the territory while alerting his criminal associates to the investigation. Morrison's solution was to conduct a series of simultaneous raids on Daniel's workshop, storage facilities, and key delivery locations throughout Silver Ridge and surrounding communities. The raids were timed to coincide with Daniel's scheduled deliveries, ensuring that investigators will be able to seize contraband materials while they were still in transit rather than waiting for them to be concealed in customer locations. The raids took place on September 15, 1873, when federal agents and territorial law enforcement officers executed search warrants at over 30 locations throughout Silver Ridge. The evidence that was seized during these operations exceeded even Morrison's expectations, including detailed records of smuggling operations, correspondence with criminal organizations, and physical evidence of contraband materials that had been transported through Daniel's network. The mattresses that were seized during the raids contained an astonishing variety of contraband materials. Investigators found stolen railroad construction plans, military weapons, explosives, gold bars, silver coins, precious stones, and even classified government documents that had been stolen from territorial offices. The total value of the seized materials was estimated at over $2 million, making Daniel's operation one of the most profitable criminal enterprises in territorial history. But perhaps most significantly, the investigation revealed that Daniel's smuggling network had been used by multiple competing railroad companies simultaneously, creating a situation where he had been playing different clients against each other while profiting from their conflicts. He had been transporting intelligence about Continental Western Railroad operations to Mountain Pacific executives while simultaneously providing Mountain Pacific information to Continental Western agents. The trial that followed Daniel's arrest was one of the most sensational legal proceedings in territorial history. The evidence presented by federal prosecutors documented not only Daniel's individual crimes, but also the broader pattern of corporate warfare and criminal activity that had characterized the railroad expansion period. The testimony revealed corruption, violence, and illegal business practices that reached from frontier construction sites to corporate boardrooms in major eastern cities. Daniel's defense strategy was based on the argument that he had been providing essential services that were necessary for economic development in dangerous and lawless frontier conditions. His attorneys argued that conventional transportation and communication methods were inadequate for the legitimate business needs of railroad companies and other enterprises that were trying to develop the American West, making his smuggling services a necessary adaptation to frontier conditions. More controversially, Daniel claimed that his activities had actually prevented violence and criminal activity by providing secure channels for resolving business disputes and transporting valuable materials without creating opportunities for theft or sabotage. He testified that many of the weapons he had transported had been used for legitimate security purposes, while the documents he had smuggled had contained information that helped railroad companies avoid conflicts that could have resulted in bloodshed. The jury's verdict reflected the complex moral and legal questions raised by Daniel's case. He was convicted on multiple counts of smuggling, conspiracy, and theft, but the sentences imposed were relatively lenient compared to what prosecutors had requested. The judge acknowledged that Daniel's activities had been criminal, but also recognized that the chaotic conditions of the railroad expansion period had created situations where conventional legal and business methods were inadequate. Daniel served 4 years in federal prison before being released on parole in 1878. During his incarceration, he had become something of a celebrity among criminals and business people who admired his ingenuity and success. When he was released, he received multiple offers to work for legitimate businesses that wanted to employ his logistics and transportation expertise for legal purposes. The mattress stuffing business that Daniel had created continued to operate under new management, but the new owners focused exclusively on legitimate bedding manufacturing and delivery services. The sophisticated smuggling techniques that Daniel had developed were studied by law enforcement agencies and incorporated into training programs for investigators who specialized in uncovering similar criminal operations. The railroad wars that had provided the economic context for Daniel's smuggling career came to an end during the late 1870s as the major railroad companies reached agreements about territorial divisions and construction responsibilities. The need for secure transportation of sensitive materials decreased significantly as the business environment became more stable and conventional shipping methods became more reliable. But Daniel's legacy extended far beyond his individual criminal activities. His smuggling network had demonstrated that sophisticated logistics operations could be conducted successfully even in remote frontier conditions, proving that the American West was ready for more complex economic activities than most people had previously believed possible. His techniques for concealing and transporting valuable materials influenced the development of legitimate security and courier services that served businesses throughout the region. More importantly, Daniel's story illustrated the complex relationship between legal and illegal business practices during the railroad expansion period. His smuggling operations had been criminal, but they had also served legitimate business needs that were not being met by conventional transportation methods. His clients had included both criminals and respectable businessmen who needed the same essential services for different purposes. In the end, Daniel Harper had been more than just a successful criminal. He had been an entrepreneur who had identified unmet market needs and developed innovative solutions that served those needs effectively. His mattresses had been more than just hiding places for contraband. They had been symbols of the ingenuity and adaptability that characterized American frontier business development during one of the most dynamic periods in the nation's economic history. The mattress stuffer who never used cotton had actually filled his beds with something far more valuable than comfortable stuffing. He had filled them with the dreams, ambitions, and desperate schemes of people who were trying to build fortunes and establish empires in the untamed American West. His lumpy mattresses have been uncomfortable to sleep on, but they have been essential infrastructure for the business activities that transformed a wilderness into the foundation of a continental economy. If you enjoyed this incredible true story of frontier ingenuity triumphing through criminal enterprise, subscribe to our channel for more amazing tales of ordinary people who accomplished extraordinary things in the American West. In the comments below, let us know what you think about Daniel's methods. Was he an innovative entrepreneur serving legitimate business needs, or simply a criminal who exploited chaotic frontier conditions? Click on the video appearing on your screen now to discover another shocking story of hidden operations from the Railroad Wars era.